Thank you for tuning in to In the Vine Dating Podcast. Today, we'll be continuing our newest segment called Who's in the Vine, released every Monday, where Melissa will be interviewing different guests to talk about the questions you ask. And remember to follow up every Thursday, where we will further discuss any questions or responses you may have. Please enjoy, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Who's in the Vine podcast, a branch off segment from In the Vine Dating podcast. We are so excited to be able to start these episodes. This is now our third episode that we're doing. Hope you checked out the one that we did with Andre. It was awesome to hear his story of just finding God and finding stability, finding security, and just overall his journey in growing up in the church and all that good stuff. So today with us, we have Mike Verduzco. Dusko. And he is Denise's husband. So today you're listening to it weeks away, but today is actually the Marine's birthday. So Mike is a veteran, a Marine veteran, and so tomorrow's Veterans Day. So Mike, thank you so much for your service. You're awesome. You're amazing. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks.
So before we get started and we go into the questions, is there anything that you want to say? You want to say hi to your adoring fans?
Oh, to that hot girl that's listening in with the ring on her finger with my last name. Hey, holler at me. Nah. No, just thanks for having me on. Obviously, excited to support you guys and support this movement, and I'm excited to see what you guys develop there in the Vine, and how this progresses. And I know you guys are all excited, so then that makes me excited. So thanks for the opportunity.
Good answer. Good answer. Good job, Denise. Good job. Okay, so the reason why I wanted to have Mike on here is because he is literally one of the most inspiring stories that I know. And he is the last one who would probably say it just because that's just how Mike is. And so I think a lot of our listeners are going to be surprised to hear the kind of things that he's endured, overcome, and of course, just his journey, period. And so, what I know about you, Mike, is obviously I'm close with your mom, right? Again, we've talked about her before. We call her G Mama, and G Mama is just an amazing, astounding woman. She's definitely defeated a lot of odds, and
Yes.
not just that, but she's helped other women like myself get over situations in life that are definitely very trying. And so we've heard her story, and we admire it so much. But today, we want to hear your side, right? Like listening, we want to listen to your experience in growing up with, and I'll let you kind of just unpack what those are. Um, but yeah, we're just so excited to be able to hear it from your point of view. So let's start with your childhood. What do you want to tell us about that?
First, I just want to kind of elaborate a little bit more on my mom, because I know you know the story. I know the people that know us know the story.
Right.
But my mom's been through a lot, and she's overcome, and she's winning in life, to be honest.
Yes.
And everything thrown her way, many people would have lost. They would have just failed. But she kept grinding through it, and now I look at my mom, and I guess we'll eventually get into that of how she came to Christ and all that, and
Yeah.
where she's at now in her life. But to see my mom, and I can look at her and I can genuinely say that she's happy, um, is huge, especially for me and my brother as well. We know what we went through.
Right.
So just a big shout out to my mom again. You're definitely a winner. You're definitely an inspiration for all these other girls. So my mom's usually one in the background who's always surprising people, and trying not to put her name on it, but we know it's her.
Yeah.
But I just want to take that time to put her kind of like show her off to the world, I guess. And my
Absolutely.
mom's definitely a winner. Mom, you're the best, and you know, thanks for being an inspiration for not just us, but all these other ladies, trying to
Yep.
win in life as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's that. That's my mom. Going back to your question about my childhood. I have one brother between my mom and my dad. I grew up in the valley, and you know, um, fortunately, about I think it was about 5 or 6 when my mom and dad decided to split ways. Um, and you know, this could be a very long story, but I guess I'll give you the bullet points, So they split up, with my mom took my brother and I, and fortunately, all my mom's friends were pretty much my dad's family since she wasn't so close with her family at the time.
Mm.
So it was just my mom by herself and her little Ford Escort wagon. We remember that car very vividly. Uh, so she took us and just kind of had to figure our life out, and we ended up basically finding a shelter for, I guess, single moms and kids. So really nowhere to go. From what I understand, my mom had really not too many friends to lean on since they were all my dad's family.
Right.
Um, so she was kind of left on her own, and packed up bags, moved into the shelter. We were in the shelter for a while. I remember, I think it was in first grade, jumping to a new school halfway through the season. That
Right.
wasn't fun, or
Yeah.
through the school year season.
No.
So that wasn't fun. And then, we ended up moving again, and we ended up moving in with one of mom's friends who allowed us to stay with her. And that was a blessing in itself to get out of the shelter and get into, a small, it was a tiny apartment, but better than the shelter.
Right, for sure.
Um, I just remember being in the shelter and seeing all these other single moms and kids, and we had no money at all. Back in the days, they had the I always tell the story because it's like it's amazing to see where we came from to where we are today. My brother and I used to scrounge for change in the car or on the floor for 29 cent and 39 cent hamburger and cheeseburger days at McDonald's. Um,
That's
and
crazy.
it's it's a funny story now, but looking back on it, like that sucks. How are you as a single mom with your two kids, having to. It was fun for my brother and I, but I can only imagine what my mom was feeling like,
Right.
trying to make it a game to find change, but in the back of her mind, like, no, we need to find something to eat. Like that, I can only imagine what that was like. Now that being a dad, I wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah, that's
My
crazy.
mom ground it out. We did what we had to do. Um, so we grew up in the shelter a little bit, then moved in with my mom's friend, and did school, did the whole thing, and right around the time of the split up, started seeing like counselor, or still unsure if it was a counselor or anger management for me. Uh, I just remember, having to do exercises that dealt a lot with my anger. So apparently, I was pretty angry as a kid. Um, yeah. Anyway, so I just kind of grew up. Me personally, I've always felt like kind of the outcast growing up. You know, I had my brother, of course, and my brother's awesome, but I just always felt like I was a little bit more mature than everyone else my age. I remember just having a hard time. Everybody would be playing and imagining things. I have a sword, I'm a dragon or whatever. Power Rangers, stuff like that. I like Power Rangers, but they would pretend that they were the Power Rangers. And I remember it was so hard for me to imagine things. It was just so hard for me to imagine things. So I'd just be there trying to fit in, and I just remember telling myself like, "This is dumb. Like, you can't fly." So I've always been that one kid that was just kind of either more mature than his group, or I always had a different attitude than everybody, and so I tried my best to fit in, but just always felt like I didn't.
Right.
So, and then it didn't help that I was this short, chubby kid with an afro, so I kind of stuck out anyway.
You're like,
um,
let me just go with this.
yeah, so growing up, school was always interesting as well. I had a few friends, and my brother's a super social butterfly, so you know, a lot of his friends became my friends just because I was his brother, and so I'm thankful for that. But
Yeah.
aside from that, we just grew up playing a lot of basketball. And I think basketball was kind of the only place where I found my identity because, I was pretty good at it. I was always in, the point guard position, so always kind of leading the team and deciding what we're going to do with the plays. So I think I've always felt like that was just kind of my niche of, being in control of what happens next, or
Yeah.
leading a group of people into to various things. So that's kind of the only place I really felt I fit in growing up. Even when we went into middle school and high school, my mom ended up finding she progressed and did well, or improved her situation,
Yeah.
and was able to get us into a house by the time I started high school.
Getting
The
into a
only thing
house.
is into a house, yeah.
Dang, I didn't
She
know
bought
that.
her own house. She bought her own house. She was dating someone at the time, her fiance, and we're able to get a house. So
That's
high
right.
school we started a house. Now what kind of kept me again down this path of feeling separated from everybody. The house was in Palmdale, and I was going to school in Glendale.
Oh.
Now in high school, in high school I started, I lost some weight, started working out, started talking to the ladies and, trying to be the cool high school kid.
Right.
But what also kind of messed with my head mentally was the fact that I was so far, so when everybody would hang out after school or everybody would go to the, football games, basketball games or whatever, I didn't have that luxury.
Oh, good point.
Because right after school I would have to walk to my mom's work, and then from work we'd go all the way back home to Palmdale. So
Hmm.
when the games were at 5, 7 o'clock or whatever it was, my mom had to get home, so they couldn't just linger and wait for me. And
Right.
so I missed out on a lot of that part of my high school, the building the friendships outside of school. And usually that's when all the fun stuff happens, right?
Yeah. That's where the fun really starts.
You don't have the teachers around, and so I missed that part of my life. And I think I grew up, missing a lot of my childhood because of that. I grew up separated from my dad. We see my dad every other weekend, so I didn't develop a relationship with him. Um, even in basketball, he coached my brothers and sisters, and I think there was one season he coached me, but it was by default because the other coach didn't want to coach or something like that.
Mm.
So we just kind of always had this. I don't know what it was. We just always were a little bit more different, my dad and I, than the rest of my siblings.
Yeah.
So I felt separated from my dad, felt separated from my friends, just felt separated, period.
Yeah.
And that kind of really stuck with me, everywhere. And even to this day, I still feel like I have my close knit of friends, and then the rest of the people, I just feel different from everybody. And, it just kind of stuck with me
Yeah.
all the way through life up into the Marines. So that's pretty much my childhood, just little old me kind of off on the side doing my thing.
Yeah.
So that's my childhood.
That's pretty crazy. A lot of those things I didn't know. I feel like I should have known that you were in basketball, but I totally forgot that.
Yeah,
But
basketball. I mean, especially Denise being a basketball player. I mean, that was one of the main reasons I was attracted to her, aside from
that's
a couple other
really.
things. But the fact that she can ball at 10 points.
Yeah. No wonder you guys like, what is it? The movie Love and Basketball, right?
Yeah, no, she's super competitive. She's,
Yeah.
don't let the fake eyelashes and nails, fool you. She'll dunk on you.
She'll throw it down. Oh, we know, we know.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so you went through high school and everything. So at what point or at what age did you join the military?
So I joined the Marines. What was it? Maybe about 8 months after high school, when I graduated high school. I had no intention of joining the Marines up until about 3 weeks before I was in boot camp.
What? Are you
I've
serious?
actually talked several of my friends out of joining the military. I just remember one day I was working at Best Buy and recruiter came up, and I had goals of becoming a police officer.
Oh,
And
and
so I
you.
met an Army recruiter and he just seemed real weak. I met a Navy recruiter, he just seemed real weak. And then this Marine recruiter came in and with just this confidence, and I was just like, man, like he had my attention.
Yeah.
And he did what recruiters do and sweet talked my way into boot camp and told me, if you sign up, you'll go to boot camp in 9, 10 months from now. I was like, okay, fine. I thought I'd still have a chance to get out. And I get a phone call on a Friday saying, hey, if you still want to, do the job you picked, you got to go on Monday. And I believe that was right when I told my mom. So my mom didn't even know I had signed
Oh
up until
my
a few days before I had to go
gosh.
to boot camp.
What the
I
heck?
mean, I always thought it was kind of in the back of my mind that I was just gonna not do it last minute. I was just kind of
Yeah.
go along with it. And next thing you know, from the time I met the recruiter, 3 weeks, I was in boot camp.
So clearly you're a 3 weeks type of man because
It all happened so fast.
As Janice shared with us, you guys got married in the 3 weeks. So
Yeah,
3 weeks,
apparently. Yeah, apparently.
that's the pattern of your life. And you entered a different boot camp when you married Denise, for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, no, joined boot camp at 18. That's
Wow.
when I joined the Marines.
Okay. So then there was like no deep thought behind going into the military then. It was just like,
Honestly, I just wanted the few extra points that supposedly they give me when I go to apply to become a cop
Oh,
for being in the military. I don't
that's
even know if that's true to this day. I don't know. I requested the application to become a cop, but never actually filled it out. There was a question, to be honest, there was a question about, describe your tattoos, and they had about 4 lines. And I have a lot of tattoos. Like, how am I gonna fit every tattoo? And I just stopped. So
like fill out a
that
separate page. Screw that.
that was about as far as my police career went. But obviously, I was a lot younger. I didn't really think everything through. I just, well, I guess it's not meant to be.
Yeah. Okay, so then how long were you in the military?
So I was in the military a little bit under 8 years,
Under 8 years?
a little under 8 years.
Dang, that's a long time. Okay, so then you got out of the military. At this point, you were like what, 26, 7,
Uh, yeah, give or take.
give or take. And then what happened after that? Like you came back, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so the Marines basically, as I picked up the ranks and, you start being in charge of, 30, 40, 50 people. You pick up some leadership skills and just kind of have a different drive, instilled into you. So I was able to use that and apply it into, the civilian life and got a job entry level and, just wasn't content with that and kind of showcased what I had and, moved on up in my career and ended up actually getting a job, a career job. I think it was within 8 months. A job I wasn't qualified for on paper, a job that, normally you need a bachelor's plus 10 years experience. I got with, my Marine Corps background and 8 months in the company.
That's crazy.
So, to the point where I was interviewing with people that had been in the company 10, 15, and 18 years. And, I'm here with just 8 months in the company and I beat them out just with, you know, my confidence in what I showed and my dedication and hard work.
Wow.
So, I was able to progress through the ranks there. And then, shortly thereafter, a couple years after is when started talking to Denize and where I'm at now.
And the rest is history.
The rest is
Okay,
history.
so so you met Denise, and obviously at this point, church was not in your.
No, I was partying hard. So, as I mentioned growing up, I always felt like a loner, kind of felt like, I couldn't do anything because I had to be home by a certain time or whatever. So as soon as 18 came around and I had a car, I was wild and out. Any chance and every chance I could be, get out, I was out. I was, partying. I, I just had this extra sense of confidence in me. You know, I felt like I could pick up any girl I wanted to. So I was just in the scene, just partying, drinking, and hooking up with girls. Um, that was that stage of my life for, you know, basically from the Marines until a little bit before I met Denize.
That's
Well,
crazy.
actually, up until I met Denize. There's a funny story there. The first time I talked to her, um, I don't
Is
know.
that for another time?
Well, I mean, no, it kind of actually it leads up to the point of the transition,
Hmm.
right? So open book, I was partying, drinking, hooking up with a whole bunch of girls, and you know, now I'm married with Denize and I have 3 kids, and trying to better myself and live the life that I know I need to live. So when I actually met Denize, the first night I met Denize and started talking to her, I actually started hitting on her friend because
No way.
I knew who Denize was, just because she's the friends that I was around, she's their aunt.
Oh,
So I knew who she was, but I just thought she was kind of like off limits because that's the homies Thea, like
makes sense. Yeah,
you
it
don't
makes
talk to
sense.
her.
Yeah.
So I just didn't talk to her. So I was like, well, okay, I can't talk to her. The other girl was talking to one of my friends. So like, okay, well, she's off limits. So hey, by default, hey, what's up? So I started talking to her friend. Um, you know, we end up sitting at different tables or whatever. So I'm with my friends. And then I end up talking to another girl at the restaurant. And we decided to go to like a little, lounge thing, a little bar. And I convinced her to take me. So I'm now with this girl for the night.
My gosh.
Um, so we go to the lounge and then little to find out, Denise and her friends end up at the same lounge. So while, I'm with this girl and she kind of ends up going to the bathroom, and I see Denise just, hanging out by the bar by herself.
The
Saw
rest
my
of the story or
opportunity,
what?
and saw my opportunity. I took it. I don't know what happened to the other girl, but the rest of the night, my
Oh
attention
my
was on Denise. The rest of
God.
the night, my attention was on Denise, and this was at the time that Denise had walked away from the church, so
Mhm.
she was just kind of doing her party scene. Uh, and so yeah, we started talking for a few months, and then you know, that leads up to her going back to church, and then not forcing me, but she just kind of said, "Hey, I'm gonna do this. If you want to come with me, great. If not, understand, but
Yeah.
it's probably won't work out." Or I forgot the exact words she said, but she basically left it on me. She's like, "Hey, not forcing you to do this, but it's on you. I'm gonna go to church on Sunday. If you want to go, I'm gonna be leaving at,
Yeah.
8:30 or whatever time she said." So I kind of thought about it and like, all right, I'll go check it out. And you know, here I am serving the church now.
That's crazy to me. That's crazy. Okay. Because again, it's not like, usually people have stories of, oh yeah, I was feeling the tug, like I just felt God, like trying to blah 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 blah. But with you, so clearly again, it's just from day to night, right? Where it's like, hey, you
And honestly, I went to the church, and if I might be brutally honest, I was like, well, I'm just going because she's going, and
right.
I've been to a church before. I was like, okay, well, most of the time you go to church to check off the box of, I've been in church. Like that's how I grew up knowing church.
Yeah.
You go for weddings, funerals, or when
Christmas.
you have to, or when you
Christmas
have
and
to.
Easter. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I went to in boot camp, they actually have church services. And I remember we used to go to church just to get away from the drill instructors because they'd leave you alone during that time. So I went to the Christian one because it was more alive. You had the music and everything, and so it didn't feel so drawn out and long. So that was kind of my recovery period for the week in boot camp.
Oh my God.
So I was like, oh, well, I've been to a Christian church. It's pretty cool. They got good music, and
Yeah.
it's not super boring, and you don't have to do the up and down and up and down, and all that. So
The
I like,
squats.
I'm into this chick, so I'll tag along. And how bad can it be? It'll be an hour, and that's that. But when I got there, um, I was just kind of sitting in the background, kind of a little awkward, and everybody's worshiping and everything, and I was just kind of, what's going on here?
Yeah, because it's very
Um,
different. Very different.
correct, correct. So there was a lot of activity, and I was just like, man, this is like a party in here. Like, are you supposed to be doing this? You know, God's gonna come down and strike you guys. Like, so it was just kind of new to me, and I just remember just kind of like one of the slower songs came on, and just kind of like thinking back on my life, and like, why is my relationship with my dad the way it is? You know, why am I here? What's up with my life? And just kind of like random thoughts.
Yeah.
And one of the church members came through, and it's just kind of like, hey, bro, I don't know if this means anything to you, but kind of started hitting, the five things that I was thinking. I think he hit like four of them.
Dang.
And I was just like, what? And, that's just the connection I had. And I was just like, okay, so something's going on here. So that
Yeah.
was my connection. I think if I didn't have that, I don't know if I would have kept going back because, I was having too much fun drinking and
Right.
partying and stuff. So, but that connection was enough to get me to come back, and, you know, look at us now, I'm still here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's crucial. Guys can go to church for the reason of following a girl, but if you don't have that personal connection of reason why you need to be there, I don't know if they'll stick around. So
Right.
that's what kept me around, that one instant, that one connection was
That's
enough to
crazy.
keep me around.
Did that happen the first time that you showed up, or was it the
The
first
very
time?
first, the very first service,
Dang.
the very
That's
first service
awesome.
he came. Like I said, if it didn't happen, I don't know if I would have came back for a second one,
Right.
or or would have been as invested. I would have just kind of, "Oh, okay, I'm kind of over this," and move on.
Yeah. That's wild because and I don't know that she would have, but even that's something that even Denise couldn't have planned, right? Because that connection really just comes from God Himself. So, all right. So then that's what pretty much answers the question that I had with what made you pursue Jesus, which is like that person coming up to you and essentially having like words of knowledge about like your life or whatever and being able to speak into that. So obviously you know that in the podcast, the girls and I have been speaking about like biblical masculinity and how, in part, biblical masculinity is providing for your family, for your wife, and being protective and all that good stuff. And so, one thing that I know about you is like you're very, like you take that very seriously, right? And so, as I was like preparing for this, as I was preparing for this interview, I started realizing like, wow, even in being in the role of being a biblical man and taking on those roles seriously, I could see how the enemy can come in and really try to distort that, right? Because I know that you went through a season where like work just became so heavy and all these things, and you had to be faced with that decision where either you choose, in essence, right? Because I'm making it seem a little bit more like, well, maybe it was, I don't know, you can correct me. But you had to choose basically like, am I gonna be home or am I gonna choose like um the money, right? And
Right.
so how how did that go for you? Like going through that transition of figuring out what the right choice was, and even like if you want to start at the whole biblical masculinity and being able to do that, because like clearly growing up you didn't have a strong male role model, and so you had to learn that on your own or you had to learn that through other men at church. Like let's start there. Let's start with learning the biblical masculinity part.
Yeah, and I do want to step up. I don't want to say like, how can I word this? I don't want to say I don't like my dad, or I
Right.
regret having him as my dad. Of course not. Like, I love my dad. It's just our relationship isn't as good as you would hope a father and son relationship would be.
Right.
Where we respect each other. If something happens to him, I check in on him. If something happens to me, he checks in on me. I can guarantee that if my house were to be falling apart and I call him, he may not be there within an hour, but he'll find a way to come up if I really ask him like that. I really need your help. He'll
Yeah.
make it happen. We just don't have that relationship where he can pick up the phone and just, hey, mijo, how was your day today? Or what's going on? It's a little awkward for us just because we had so many years of just kind of, he would just be the provider and
Right.
not necessarily, the father figure teaching me, here's the life lessons, or here's how to be a better man.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that is cultural as well.
Oh yeah,
His dad
absolutely.
was in Mexico and he grew up here, so uh, he just kind of had to figure out how to work at such an. I think he was started working at about 12 or 13, so
That's
he
great.
he did the best with what he knew.
Yeah.
Um, but unfortunately, like I said, just our relationship is just kind of cordial. Just hey, dad, how's it going? Okay, good. And, text you next month type of deal. Fortunately,
Yeah.
and part of the one of the other draws into the church as well was actually Denise's family.
Hmm.
So I remember my brother-in-law Henry, and seeing his family and seeing how he's a dad of three. His kids love to be around them. They're hanging out, having fun, laughing.
Yeah.
Um, you know, they'd have deep conversations. I remember when I first came in, they would always crying because conversations would get so deep. But it was crying, not crying of sadness, but crying of healing. They would
Yeah.
talk about things and figure out a way to help each other. And I was just, at first, I was kind of weirded out by it. I was just like, what kind of family are you guys? Like,
Yeah.
I come from a family where we talk smack to each other and just like, hey, man up, go figure it out.
Right.
And they're over here like, well, how can I help you? How did that make you feel? I was like, let's not talk about feelings here. That's not my thing.
You're like feelings
But I
are the
saw, but I was mature enough in my life at that point to see that this is what a healthy father looks like. This is what a healthy family looks like.
yeah.
The dad is around, the dad is involved with his kids, the dad respects the mom, loves everybody. This is what a family unit looks like. And where growing up, what I was mostly used to seeing was just, the dad provides, the mom takes care of the kids. And then when you guys go to, family events or parties, all the dads go together and hang out and drink on one side, and then all the moms are over here. And, it's just like they're
Right.
together, but they're never together.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah.
And so seeing, Henry and his family together, and then, Pastor Abraham as well was another example. I'd look at him and see how much he loved his kids, how much his kids loved him, how much he would like bend over backwards to do whatever he can to make his wife happy, to be there
Yeah.
for his wife. And it was so new to me. It was so weird. I was just kind of like, is this normal? Are they putting on a show?
Yeah.
But the more I stuck around, the more I saw like, no, this is them. This is genuinely them. This is really how they are. I was like, man, like I want that, like I want to be a dad of that nature. I want my kids to look up to me. I want my kids to, come see me.
Right.
So the relationship I had with my dad, I didn't want that for my kids.
Mm.
I wanted to, develop something better. So having that encounter with God at the church, and then, seeing these two role models of how they were stewarding their family and how awesome it was and amazing it was, I was like, man, I want that. I don't want to grow up and have my kids just text me on my birthday and that's it. Like I
Yeah,
didn't
it's
want that.
terrible.
So that's really what kept me around, was just being around others that I wanted to be like.
That's good. And I think that really destroys the life for a lot of men, right? And I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's easy. Like I never want to say, oh, Mike figured out like the perfect thing. Like I understand that it comes with challenges, because even in that, I'm sure there were times where I don't want to put words in your mouth, but there was probably times where you were like, am I cut out for this? Like, you know,
Yeah, no, and not even just cut out for it. Like one, I was like, well, one, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how I'm gonna get there or whatever, So there's that aspect of it. But then there's two of, the life you were living always calling you back.
yeah,
I know I mentioned I grew up kind of a loner, but once I started drinking and partying, like I was kind of, I was in the scene. I made a lot of friends, and everybody kind of loved when I came around, and because I could drink with the best of them, I could party with the best of them, and
yeah,
you know I drive wherever. I was just down for whatever.
yeah,
So when I started kind of cutting off the drinking and trying to take the church life serious, the old life starts calling you back. Your friends start teasing you. Your friends start just kind of like, you're not even a man anymore, and that's hard too. Like,
that's
and
crazy.
and I'm the type of person that I'm super confident. You question my manhood, like hey, we're throwing blows. Like I stay quiet for the most part, but when I cross the line, you don't want to see me there.
Right.
So when people start questioning my manhood or start questioning, who I am, like that hits me hard.
Oof.
It took a lot of maturity and a lot of biting my tongue to just kind of be like, you know what, like you guys are just trying to drag me down rather than build me up. Like I had to see that in a certain way, and because they were my friends, like it's sad to see that they didn't want to change either. So I still had respect for them. I still love them. They were my friends, not that long ago.
Yeah.
But I had to really like make it black and white of just like, am I gonna stick with this pattern, or am I gonna choose a path that hopefully I can become a better dad?
Yeah.
My biggest thing was becoming a better dad, a better husband. Like that's really what I wanted. If I stuck with these friends, I'm not gonna lie, hanging out with them was fun.
Yeah.
But is that gonna help me become a better dad?
Right.
Probably not. And I
Right.
had to make that. I had to slowly make that cut, and it was hard. It was hard,
Yeah. And I'm
especially growing up a loner. Growing up kind of an outcast. Now I'm in the mix. I have all these friends, and then to kind of start cutting them off, and thankfully, I developed friends within the church, and they're about the same type of people. Just cut out the drinking. We can
right.
laugh, we can joke, and make fun of each other, but in a healthy manner.
Yeah.
So I was able to fit in with another group that helped me, go the direction I wanted to go.
So I think you touched on something that's really profound, right? As far as like the manhood and stuff, because for a long time the church has been super feminized. Like me growing up as a Hispanic woman, my mom was the one that would take us to church. She would be the one to get us ready. My dad would stay home because he worked the whole week, like all these things. And so I obviously I couldn't see what you just touched on, where it's like once you start coming to church, yeah, because the world has this like perverted way of seeing masculinity, where it is the drinking, it is the promiscuity, it is the doing whatever you want, not respecting women, or um like having that relationship but at the same time being separated. And so it is very it must be such an identity battle, especially when you come to church. And so that's why I'm always going to press our church, because it's like, no, we have manly men that come to our church that know how to govern their family and how to do all those things, right? And so that transition for you from quote unquote worldly masculinity to biblical masculinity, as you said, came from seeing the example of other men and all that. And what I love about that is because obviously, we see the relationship between you guys, between the men at our church, from the single men to the married men. And it's like there really doesn't have to be that separation between like your family. So if Dusko is there, then that means his family is invited, there's space for your kids and all that. Like there's not a separation. Obviously there's a place, a time and place where it's like, all right, like it's just men hanging out. But
Correct.
that's what I do like, where it's like everybody builds each other up. So as I've seen men become fathers or become husbands, like it's always an addition and it's never like a separation, and I think
Right.
that's such a something that we need to like emphasize on. But
Correct.
some
Yeah, and it's putting everything in its proper order.
yeah,
I think that's part of real masculinity. It's what's really important.
yeah,
To me, it was important to be a good father to my kids. I want my kids to love me. I want my kids to grow up, and not just right now because they're young. When they're younger, it's easy for especially if you have daughters and you're a dad, it's easy for them to love you. It's easy. But I want them to love me when they're 13, 15, 18, 21, 25, because I've been there, because I helped them, because they feel safe around me.
right,
Um, and that to me, that's the difference between, just being a man and having the masculinity to, you touched on it on one of the other episodes where, to do hard things.
yeah,
By nature, us guys, it's easy to fight. It's easy to be angry. It's not easy to be like, hey Mija, come here, what's going on?
no,
What are you thinking? How you feeling?
yeah,
That is not natural to me, especially me. Like
yeah,
those that know me, uh, I joke around, I have a good time, but for the most part, I'm pretty serious.
yeah,
If I don't know you, I'm gonna be super serious.
right,
I don't talk about my feelings unless you really want to ask and I feel comfortable with you, I'll tell you.
do a podcast.
Um, but to talk about my feelings is just something that's not natural to me.
Yeah,
Again, that goes back to I'm pretty sure me growing up by myself and then going to the Marines where they just tell you, suck it up, be
yeah,
a man. In other words, obviously a lot harsher words, but
yeah,
and that instilled in me. And to be honest, I felt like I was a really good Marine because of that. I was able to separate my feelings from what had to get done.
mm,
Um, and so now, being a dad, it's difficult to sit down and be like, okay, something is wrong with my daughter. Let me go talk to her on a different level other than, hey, you want to go have fun, you want to go play.
yeah,
What's going on? What's bothering you? How do you feel? And a lot of that, I give thanks to my wife too, because she'll tell me like, hey, you know, Emma, oh, my daughter is like going through something, and she's like, hey, I think you should really talk to her. So those times where either if I'm busy at work or whatever, and I may have missed it,
yeah,
she'll step in and she'll be like, hey, I think it's good for a dad to have this conversation.
mm-hmm,
And so she gives me that opportunity to do it and have those conversations with my daughter. And so now my daughters, all three of my daughters are super close to me.
yeah,
They
for
love
sure,
me, and it's because I did those hard things and got in those awkward situations where I don't like talking about feelings
yeah,
and doing what I have to do to help my daughters be better people, to help them heal from whatever they're going through, to help them feel comfortable with me so that later on in life, they're not hiding things from me, or they're not afraid to come to me when they're in a sticky situation. Understand that I'm here to help them, that I
right,
want them to succeed. So yeah, that's the hard thing is stepping out of yourself and not just being a man to be a man and make kids and fight. Like
yeah,
there's a deeper part of being a man and being a dad.
that's super good. That's super good. Yeah, because it's true. It's like, growing up, your parents always say that. It's like you can come to me for anything. Well, at least any decent parent would say that you can come for me for anything. But it's one thing when they've shown you the action as you grow up, like because it doesn't feel so transactional, it doesn't feel so scary. Okay, so you touched on all that and how you were saying that the
Oh,
reason
I
why.
do. Sorry,
Oh,
before
go ahead.
before you jump on, one part that I forgot to touch on. You made reference to me, leaving one job to spend more time with my kids, and
Yes.
and I feel this is super important for this type of podcast, especially people that are looking to court, looking to event, take things serious, and eventually get married, have kids, and all that. Um, you know, Obviously the COVID era brought in really horrible times and just kind of changed the world forever, right?
Yeah.
But God uses everything for good, and one of the good things that I felt came out of COVID was the whole working from home aspect, the remote
Hmm.
work. Um, I was able to work from home, and during those years, uh, my daughters are young, so this is like the perfect time for a dad to be at home with his kids, so they can
Yeah.
still play. I remember, the highlight of my day was, when they would because they wake up later than I would, come down into my office and just come in and hug me and just kind of sit with me at the desk.
Mhm.
Anytime I printed a paper, like they would go fight to go get the paper and bring it to me. So those were awesome and moments that I would have missed out if I was stuck in the office the whole time. And so, and the opportunity came up, and it was great pay, almost 50% more than what I was making at the previous company. So I took it, and that job actually had me on site all the time. I was putting in probably 60 plus hours, um, waking up super early and just always tired. So the pay was amazing, you know. I'm not gonna lie. And after about a year and a half, I just felt I was getting irritated and always tired, and you know, noticed a little change in my daughters as well. Like just kind of felt a little bit more distant. And so finally, after speaking with Pastor Abraham and kind of, got some knowledge from him, and it finally clicked on me. I'm like, man, the reason you're not happy here is because I was missing my kids.
Mhm.
I was missing the critical eras, when they're 2, 3, 4 years old, and those are the most fun times.
Right.
And I was missing out on it just because I wanted a bigger paycheck. Um, so finally, I just made the decision to, and mind you, this job, I was supposed to be taking over for the owner. So literally, I was handed this, multi-million-dollar job company. He was planning to retire within 5 years. So I had this golden path.
Was in the bag,
It
literally.
was literally in the bag. And, the time that I was there, I could tell, he loved me there and wanted me to be there. And but at the end of the day, I just look back and I'm like, man, I'm missing out on the golden years of my kids.
Yeah.
So I ended up calling up my previous company and asked if they would take me back. And of course, they didn't want me to leave in the first place. So they ended up taking me back. So I ended up taking, a heavy pay cut to return for the opportunity to work from home. And I can say, I'm coming up on almost a year since that decision, and it's like the best decision ever. Um, I felt like 1,000,000 pounds just off of my shoulders. Even though the check's not as big, but being at home, being with my kids, and being able to just kind of work from anywhere. I can take the family and we can go to Big Bear, Lake Tahoe, or wherever.
Yeah.
And as long as I have my laptop or my iPad, I'm working, but I'm with the family, and
Right.
just it's amazing. So that really highlighted the importance of when you are a dad, you have to be present.
Yeah.
You have to be around. Um, Again, going back to the reason I feel that my dad and I are so separated, we're not as close as we should be, was because we only saw him every other weekend. And, he would work some weekends, so we would be at his house, but he wouldn't be around.
Mm.
And so I think that's what was missing, that's what prevented us from having that super cool father son bond.
Yeah.
Uh, and that really opened my eyes, and I'm so thankful I made that decision to come back and work from home. Um,
That's
my daughters, you notice a change in my daughters as well. Even my youngest one, Razi, she at first, her first years, she just always wanted to be with mom, and obviously she's breastfeeding and all that, but
yeah.
um, now she's super attached to me. She wants to sleep next to me all the time.
Mhm.
As soon as I come home, she's trying to sit on me and hanging all over me, and so
A huge victory.
I know that was a lot because I'm around,
Yeah.
so that's huge. So for all of you guys that are going to be going into this Vine mixer, and you're thinking, okay, I'm here with my career and this is where I want to be. And I would definitely say, like, stop now and ensure that part of your plan is making sure you have enough time for not just your wife, because that's another big thing too.
Yeah.
Now that I'm home, Denise gets to see me a lot. I don't know if that's good or bad for her, but it's good for me. It's good for me.
I'm sure
um,
she likes it.
but I get to help her out too. She volunteers and stuff. I can watch the kids, so it frees her up. She doesn't
Yeah.
stress out as much. So it's just good across the board. But going back to my point, if you're leading up to this point where you're trying to really analyze, okay, financially, am I in a place to where I feel I'm okay to date? Mentally, and am I mature enough to really take a serious relationship right now and all that? Part of the planning should be, okay, what is it going to look like? When if we do get married and we have kids, what's that goal? What's our goal there? What's my goal
Right.
there? How much? how much time am I gonna allocate to work, how much time to my family, and what's my non-negotiables,
Yes.
Um, I didn't realize the time on site was a non-negotiable until it was too late in my case. If I would have
Mm.
stayed at the job, it probably would have really done some serious damage to my relationship with my kids.
Yeah.
But I caught it enough. I caught it in time and fixed it. And now I'm seeing the fruit of it. Of my kids, always want me to play with them, always want to do something. So um, keep that in mind as you're planning that. Make time for your spouse, make time for your kids, and it's important to make good money, to survive, especially now with $6 gas. But
Yeah, it's
don't
great.
put money above the time with your loved ones because it's not worth it.
Right. And I love that you said that because, and obviously the reason why you wanted like a bigger paycheck, it wasn't just so that you can be selfish with it. It was for your family. It was so that you can provide a better life for them so that they could have more opportunities, more trips, more travel, I'm sure. But at the end of the day, like it's not those transactions that matter. It's really spending time, right? I'm sure your kids, even though I know the girls love to travel, they would rather be at home than dad than be in a awesome exclusive trip, not even knowing who that man is with them, right? Because then it's just awkward. And
Right.
so I think what you're saying is absolutely true. And not just that, but and I love how you're even emphasizing like start paying attention to those things because being part of a man too, correct me if I'm wrong, because I've never been one, praise God, is is sacrificing, is learning that art of
Big time.
sacrificing. And so it's like it
Big
doesn't
time.
just happen once you have the wife, once you have the kids, once you have those things. Like as you said, when you started coming to the church, you were already looking at that. You were already saying, hey, I want to be a good dad. I want to be able to be a good husband. So you were able to start sacrificing those friendships that at one point were meaning a lot to you for a payoff that would end up being much better, that you couldn't
Right.
even see it. So
Right.
that to me is profound because I
Yeah.
think
And
men,
what? Sorry.
no,
Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
One thing that I do want to highlight is just you know the way things work when you put it in the right place. It just crazy stuff happens. So even though it was a significant drop in pay, those that know us, we still live very comfortably.
Yeah.
Like I'm not to the point where we're eating ramen noodles and all that. Like
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
we go to steakhouses. My daughters love sushi. They love steak. Denise loves the finer things in life for sure. She has a million pairs of shoes, and you know, I think I've told her no to buying something maybe 3 times ever. It's kind of a running joke, but so even though I took a significant pay cut, we're still living the same lifestyle. It's like our money's just stretched more somehow. I don't know what it is. So we're still equally as happy as far as money is concerned. I'm not sweating the money. I'm
Right.
never concerned that I'm gonna swipe my debit card and is it gonna go through? No, like we're
Can
totally
be
comfortable. We can take trips whenever we want. So it's just amazing to see that, when you prioritize your life correctly, like somehow God just makes it work for you. Like it just happens.
yeah.
So I didn't want to, leave the impression that,
Right,
I
right.
sacrificed. So
Start
I
a
was
GoFundMe.
blessed. Yeah, because I prioritize being a dad, because I prioritize being a father and husband, I was blessed, and now we're still able to live the same lifestyle. Like it's amazing.
Yeah, well, I wish I would have, in that case, now that you said that, I really wish I would have just finished my thought because that's actually where I was going to lean into, where it's like, okay, you followed God's direction and instruction. And again, like I know that we're summarizing it and making it seem like it was just very easy, but I know that that whole time for you was like very difficult, right? Because as a man and as all these things, like I'm sure you were faced with a lot of expectations and a lot of decisions and weighing out the good and the bad. And so that's really what I wanted to ask. It's like, okay, so you made the decision, and obviously, once you decided to act out and say, you know what, my family is more important. I've heard the testimony of when you called your job, even how you said like they took you back, but it wasn't just like yeah, man, come back. Like they literally, God pretty much opened up the Red Sea for you to be able to come back to that position, right? So talk about that because I want people to be inspired, like that God really creates a path.
Yeah, yeah. So when I called my company to come back, keep in mind I'm up there in the company, so I was the director of operations. So it is a nice salary, and you know for a lot of people that are the higher up you get into businesses, you realize cash flow is a thing. you
Yeah.
have your monthly output of cash and your monthly input of cash, and to just plop in a salary of my kind, like that's something to really consider. You can't just say, yeah, let's start tomorrow. It's okay, well, when can we make this happen?
Yeah.
So when I called, my boss was like, yeah, I'd love to have you back. He's like, but I gotta push you to start in about 2 months. Let's get through the holidays and we'll start you like, I think, yeah, I said like March or something,
Hmm.
somewhere down the line. And I was like, fine, I can grind it out for another few months. So I've been here a year and a half, it's another few
Yeah.
months. Um, but then something crazy happened, and uh, an opportunity opened up where I could help them with their sister company. And so he actually ended up calling me about a week later and saying, hey, I can actually get you to start if you can start in a week and a half from now. I was like, what? And so I jumped on the opportunity, and I started with them a lot sooner than later, and you know it was amazing, and we even got a trip out of that, and my kids love it out here and all that. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's truly just amazing to see how the doors just opened up when I fully expressed the true desires of my heart.
Yeah.
Things just opened up
That's awesome.
radically.
That's awesome. Okay, so as we're wrapping it up, there's two things. One thing that I hadn't paid attention and it really just jumped out at me when we first started, it's speaking to like single mothers, right? Because you're the product, you and your brother, which your brother, we didn't get a chance to talk about that, but G Mama has shared some of his testimony just at work and how he's growing over there too. And he's also very successful and he also has like a good life going for him, right? And again, all you guys, both of you guys, along with G Mama, started off pretty much homeless. Like, and that was because G Mama decided to take that stand and be like, no, like I'm not gonna be putting my kids through this anymore. And so then,
Mhm.
and even herself, but I know that knowing her, she put you guys first. And so, um, the fact that both of you are, and I don't really know much about him, but both of you guys have like a good head on your shoulders, and you guys are diligent workers and all these things. Like, how would you? I'm sure that's giving you like a heart for like single moms in one way or another. But like, how would you encourage them where it's like, well, my kids don't have like a strong father role. Like what, Mike, right now, what would you say to those mothers now?
Man, that's a good question.
Yeah.
So I think one thing that, going back to what I can remember from my mom, I'm sure she had it tough. I see Denise, in her day to day and how busy she is, and you know, with the three little ones, and it's just a lot of work to be a mom, period.
Hmm.
Now that's Denise with me helping her out and, having someone stable around. So I can imagine a single mom with not very many friends, just trying to make it. Like it still blows my mind that my mom was able to figure it out.
Yeah.
But one thing that I can give my mom credit for was that through those times, from what I can remember, I never really felt like I was in that situation.
Hmm.
Like she did what she could to, reward us, right? Like the
Yeah.
29-cent hamburgers, right?
Yeah.
Um, my brother and I, we love to play basketball. So, what's something cheap you can do for kids is take them to the park. So she would try to take us to the park as much as we could. She did the best she could with what she had. So for the single moms, I think that are out there, going through a similar situation, and you just feel all this weight on your shoulders, and which, okay, there is a lot of weight.
Right.
Um, just know that your kids in that moment, they just want to have fun.
Mm.
So, and fun's not always money.
Yeah.
Yeah, granted, some kids like to go to Six Flags or what have you, but you can have fun with, $1, little squirt gun from the Dollar Tree, and,
Yeah.
we'll figure it out. So if you sit back and analyze and really like weigh your burdens on you at the moment, just know, like, don't feel like you have to financially provide for your kids. As long as you're there as mom, as long as you're having fun with your kids, like that's all they're gonna remember. So
Mm.
if that helps you kind of take some of the weight off your shoulder, and like, I have to provide financially for my kid to some extent, yeah, feed them and clothe them, of
Right.
course.
Yeah.
But don't feel like because we didn't get the Nintendo, because we didn't get, oh, Nintendo's old. Oh no, we have the Switch now because we didn't get the new video game because we didn't get the clothes. Like you know, in the moment, like there may be a small, feeling attached to that, but we look past that. Like I shared the story a few times where my mom didn't have much money, and so back when I was in high school, Sean John, Fat Farm, Rockaware, those were all the
Oh,
brands that everybody was wearing.
yeah.
So my mom had took us to a t-shirt factory and bought me some Sean John supposedly and Rockaware and Fubu. They were all fake, right? They were like $7. So she was so excited to give it to me. I was so excited to get it, and I couldn't tell the difference at the time.
Yeah.
And some of my friends exposed it, and that
This,
moment sucked.
yeah.
But like that was just that moment. Looking back on it now, I can laugh at it. Like we can all laugh about remember that moment, and um. So I guess like going back to the single moms and stuff is like just know that your the kids what they're gonna remember is the funny times, they're gonna remember the worst of the worst and the best of the best.
Yeah.
All the in between, it just gets grayed out and it's just a data dump in your head. So
Yeah.
I remember the fun times I had with my brother. Literally had a bow and arrow from one of the little Dollar Trees close by. Like that was one of our favorite toys. There's those little, it's like a tennis ball that sticks to
Oh,
the,
yes. The pink
you
ones, the
know,
pink and green ones.
yeah,
Yeah.
those like those little things are like what I remember most with my brother and just playing basketball. So as a single mom, like don't feel like giving them stuff is gonna or not being able to give them stuff is gonna affect their life. Like take that weight off your shoulders. Just create those memorable moments, whether it be, going on a hike or just, taking them to a park and, don't let that financial burden fall on your weight. Shake it off right now and just have a good time with your kids. That's what we're gonna remember.
That's really good.
So uh, I guess that's all I can give. I think this would be more of a question for my mom.
Yeah, I
But
can't
at
wait.
least from a kid growing up perspective, it's I don't remember all that stuff. I just remember the good times. So
Yeah,
if you can make those memorable moments, um, that's what we're gonna remember.
that's good. I love that. Um, and the second question, the last closing question, well, actually second to last, is what would you say to other men who didn't grow up with strong male leaders?
Honestly, it's up to you to break the cycle. Um, you can look at a lot of families and you can just see a pattern. If you see, within a family that you have multiple, divorces and,
Yeah,
stepbrothers, stepsisters, and, you just kind of see it throughout the family. Like that's kind of what you were raised, that's what you've seen, that's what you kind of think is normal.
right.
So much so that at one point in my life, I thought I was like, okay, well, by the time I'm 30, I'm gonna have like three baby mamas and three kids, but I'll never get married. That was a thought in my head at one point because I thought it was normal. Like, ain't nobody gonna tie me down. I'll just have kids, and literally, that was what
Yeah,
was in my head. I accepted that it was okay. And it wasn't until I saw, Abraham and Henry's family that I was just like, oh dang, like you could have a good family.
and
And
like that.
it's not just in movies, and it's not all fake. Like it's genuine.
Yeah,
Um, that it clicked for me, and so okay, so basically, what other men in my shoes need to do is just look around and it's like, do you want that? Do you want to continue the cycle, or do you want to be something different?
yeah,
No one's gonna change it for you. No one's gonna hold your hand and walk you through it. Now, you can get guidance from other people, but ultimately, it's on you to make the
right.
decision of what type of life you want, what type of dad you want to be. um, and you gotta rise up and be a real man and
Yeah,
do what you need to do to be what a father is, to be what a good husband is. And, be there for those times that others would label as not manly, and you know, hear your daughter out when she cries and not just tell her stop crying and go to your room.
right.
It's like what's bothering you? How did that make you feel? Type of deal.
Yeah,
So it's on you. It's definitely doable. If you could walk in my shoes, you think all odds are against me, and somehow I did it. So if I can do it, you can do it.
yeah, which again, now the person that didn't have strong male leaders, like now I know that a lot of the young men at church actually look up to you now. So it's not just your family, it's people at the church. It's why even us, like, we're like, oh well, I forgot who I was telling, and I was like, dude, like Mike's opinion matters to me. So the fact that I have Mike's backing on this, I'm like, then yeah, for sure, I know it's a good decision, you know? So it's just crazy to me because, and I think I've said this in the podcast already, where it's like the Lord takes the lonely and he puts them in families. And I think that's I don't know, but it's a song. And I absolutely love that. And I think that you're a perfect depiction of that because yeah, he did put you in a family, but not just that, he's allowed you to build your own. And now you've broken the cycle in your family and in some ways built a new cycle in in Denise's like paternal family, right? So to me, that's just so profound. So
Yeah,
is there anything
yeah,
else
and
that you would say?
yeah, and jumping back to the, like you said, it's starting a new cycle. It wasn't just changing my life, and I didn't go out there, seeking to help men. Like that's just not me.
Yeah,
I'm not that type of person. If you come to me, I'll help you if you're genuine, and I think you're not going to waste my time. I will give you my all.
yeah,
I'll help you walk through whatever you need to walk through. But I'm the type of person that if I feel you're going to waste my time, I'm just going to cut you because my time is valuable. I got time at work, time with the kids, and my time is valuable. I know
right,
my worth and I know where to put my time into. So one thing that did help me obviously was seeing examples of what I wanted my future to look like, and I was able to pick their brain and just kind of hey, I don't know what I'm doing here, or what do you think about this? And they're always text away, a phone call away, and I know if I got something deep to talk about, I know exactly who to talk to.
yeah,
Um, and so I think it's also important that if you do want to be the one to start the change, um, have those around you that have either done it or have the examples of what you want to be like. Because without that, how are you going to learn to change what you know as natural?
right,
Um, you need to be able to take a few lessons from them or some advice, some support, some hey, you're doing the right thing, or hey, you could have probably done this to have a little bit of a better outcome.
yeah,
Without that, uh, you're in new territory. You're not really going to know what to do, where to go. So it's important to have people around you to support you, to help you grow, and lean on them and trust them. And know that if they were able to bear that fruit, you can bear it too. Like you just got to figure out what they did and how they're doing it and apply it to yourself.
yeah. A1 sauce. It's really good.
And if I could, just going the last thing on the masculinity thing is, you know, I knew when I was growing up, it was always thought that the guys going to church were the weak guys.
Mhm.
They could have hang with the fellas. Um, but that's not the case. There's different personalities in the church, and if you go talk to Pastor Abraham and talk to me and then talk to Jose and a few other guys in the church, even A-Rob, we all have different personalities. We all
Right,
have different strengths and weaknesses. Um, I'm pretty straight up, pretty cutthroat. I'm the one that'll tell you, like, man, dude, suck it up, be a man, do this, and no excuses. Like,
right.
just figure it out. If you need help, I'll help you, but you can do it. Like, just be a man, grind it out.
Yeah,
But I'm not the type. Like, my personality is not for everybody, and I'm okay with it.
right.
If you need someone that's a little bit more encouraging, then there's people in the church that'll kind of like, hey, it's okay, I understand, it's hard. We have people like that as well.
Yeah,
So it's also important to understand, what type of mentorship you actually will accept and will be successful for you.
yes.
What type of friendships are gonna work for you?
Yeah,
Because again, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. And so if you jump to me and you're not ready for the harder talks and the straight black and white,
yeah.
I could scare you away. I may have some good tips, but I could scare you away just with my delivery, my mannerisms, or whatever.
Right.
So I think also, as you're going through and, searching for your masculinity, like you got to understand who you are as a man. How did you react to certain things? How do you accept certain things and understand, okay, if this is my end goal and I need some type of feedback, some type of mentorship, this is the type of mentorship that I need that's going to help me be successful.
Yeah,
For me, it's the hard look. Like the Marines was easy for me. Boot camp, like yelling at me and this is what you have to do and don't ask and okay, I can do that.
yeah,
You know. Whereas and if you were to put me in a counseling session and just how did that make you feel, I'd go crazy. So understand who you are as a man, understand your natural wiring, understand how you accept things, and then find a goal of what you want to be like, and then find others that mesh with your with your ear, I guess, if you want to say it.
Yeah.
I don't know how else you want to relate it, but um, find a personality that you will accept to hear from, so that you can generally take the knowledge they're giving you and apply it, not just he's having me do that again, you know.
Right. Yeah.
Um, so I think that's a big part of masculinity, is knowing who you are and knowing what you're capable
That's good.
of, knowing your limits, and trying to test them, obviously, but knowing your limits, knowing your weaknesses, and knowing who can help fill those voids and build you up.
Yeah, that's good. And I think that's the, obviously you haven't heard Andres yet because we're barely going to release it on Monday, but that's essentially what he's talking about too, is like being able to surround yourself with men and ask for help from the right ones, right? Asking for help is necessary. You can't just expect people to all of a sudden just pour these things onto your lap. So I think that's that piece of information is key, where it's like ask for help, you know?
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned Andre, because Andre, is one of my close friends, and he and I are complete opposites.
So opposite. Yeah.
I'm black and white, serious, and you know, and Andre's, the comedian type guy, and kind of goofy, and he has these oddball ideas, but he's super brilliant.
Yeah.
That guy's got a brain on him, and so that's where we connect. I'm a deep thinker, he's a deep thinker, so when he wants to get serious, we both click and we both mesh.
Yeah.
So there's several times where he's reached out to me for little guidance, and when I need to kind of lighten up a little bit, I know I can count on him to just throw something random.
For sure.
So our differences work for whatever reason. Um, and so again, that goes back to what works for you.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's either be drill instructor status and just you got to do A, B, and C.
Yeah.
And then with Andre, it works out because it's kind of my relief, from always being so serious. He kind of throws in the phone, just like, dude, really? Like, you know, but he's someone that I can generally trust. And I know that he's got a different viewpoint of life that, when it's something doesn't come natural to me, I can tap into his brain and just kind of like, hey, bro, this is kind of more in your arena. What's your thoughts on this?
Yeah.
And we mesh great, ironically.
Yeah. And I think we all have those kind of relationships, but it's true. It's like finding those that value you, that you value, and you can trust with the small things and the big things, right? And so,
Yep.
for anybody listening, if you heard this and you're like, I want to be part of a community like that, again, Greater Works Christian Church, we're in Lancaster, and of course, connect with us, send us messages, let us know your thoughts on this. If you want to hear more from Mike, or if you want to hear more from any of the men that we've interviewed so far, please just send us a message. You can email us. You can find us on Instagram at inthevine.dating. And yeah, be sure to tune in to our Thursday podcast at In the Vine Dating. And we'll be here. Feel free to reach out with your questions if you want us to expand on a certain topic. We're here to help and to support. So thank you so much for tuning in to Who's in the Vine. Mike, thank you so much for having us. You're awesome. You're amazing. I know your story is going to impact many people. So thank you for sharing it. I know that, I just know that it's a big deal. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, this is uncomfortable for me. So thanks for hearing me out.
Thank you for listening. If you liked this episode or we answered any of your questions, or you have a question that you would like to be discussed in future episodes, let us know in the comments or share on social media. You may also email us at inthevine.dating@gmail.com. And don't forget to visit our website for more information about our upcoming events on inthevinedating.com. And be sure to hit subscribe so you won't miss out on the amazing content and guests we have lined up for you. Shalom and God bless.